Chapter 16. Some thoughts on the nature of unconditional love, and what Tashi taught me. Before epilepsy came into our lives, Tashi was a very different dog. The other day I came across some old time-lapse footage that I shot back in 2008. Tashi was present and by my side throughout. You can hear him drinking water, shaking himself and munching treats. But in over an hour of video, there is not one single bark to be heard. We should have climbed Ben du Craig that day, but the aspiring pack leader was too busy playing with his new video camera, and my little shadow was happy just to sit beside me in the now, as he always was. Over the years, the epilepsy made him much more anxious, and he developed that familiar yap that is often heard in the background of my videos. I do think he would always have barked more with the confidence of age, but I have no doubt that epilepsy played a very big role in the way his personality changed over the years, and I was probably a much better pack leader than I often gave myself credit for. But in later life my wee man could be very intolerant of anyone invading our space or trying to engage with me, and in the end the epilepsy made him a little mad. I began this mountain memoir by talking about Tashi's tail, and I will end his part in the story by returning to that magnificent, unruly, almost always wagging tail. I knew for over a year that Tashi was reaching the end of his journey. The tail told me. It takes conscious physical effort for the Apso to hold its tail proudly erect across its back. Tashi's tail always had a story to tell, and with its diminishing vigour, I knew those winter winds had come, and the pain of losing him has crushed me. Meditation is not necessarily solely concerned with emptying the mind of all thought forms. It can be used as a method for deeper reflection upon an aspect of the Dharma, or indeed the meaning of life, if you want to put it that way. In my younger years, life was all about being in love, and the associated sensual and emotional pleasures involved. I really didn't consider or even particularly care whether my love was given unconditionally or not, although it did have to be reciprocated. It has taken some time for me to experience and understand the nature of unconditional love, and little Tashi Jomo has been, and still is even in death, my greatest teacher in this. I loved that daft wee dog dearly, and I have always known that one day this would cause me great pain. We are all living towards our deaths, as Dr. Jung noted, and alas, our dogs, or perhaps more appropriately, little gods, pass through the seasons of life so much quicker than us. My love for Tashi was given freely, and without any dependent conditions. It didn't matter a whit to me whether he reciprocated this or not. If it had, then my love would not have been unconditional. Worthy or not, I was the great love of Tashi's little life, and that makes my old heart both smile and cry. A love that is purely egocentric and dependent on perceived benefits is liable to become grasping and selfish, and ultimately empty. Sadly, some sentient beings can even be in love with their possessions, status, and the acquisition of great wealth. Love does come in many guises. The Buddhist view is that we should give love unconditionally, all sentient beings, without any discrimination and irrespective of their rank or merit. On a bad day I can be more of a Victor Meldrew than a Dalai Lama, and I can pass judgment with the best of them. Even in adversity, our lives can become a teaching. It is simply a question of letting go of the cascading stream of thoughts and anxiety that adverse circumstances inevitably produce, and allowing them to dissolve into their inherent state of emptiness. Easy to write and speak, but much more difficult to put into practical application. However, if I consciously allow my conditioned mind to dwell on adversity and postulate on the negative outcomes to be faced in a potential future scenario, all I do is seed my own mental suffering with a stream of unrelenting illusory thought forms. By allowing my conditioned mind to obscure my natural vision, I achieve nothing more than dualistic attachment to my adverse circumstances. It does not in any way improve the situation. The past is gone, and the future has not yet occurred. Only clear presence in each moment can end the obscuration of our free-ranging negative thoughts and emotions. It is truly a question of simply letting go and soaring above the cloud into the azure emptiness of sunyata. This is what our dogs teach us. Of course, none of this will remove the unpleasant circumstances of the adversity that we may be facing, or indeed the future fears that may spring out of it. But being mindful of the mind and its inherent capacity to torment us will help us tame it, and give us respite, if only temporarily. With practice, I have become more skilled at taming and stilling my thought. But being human beings, do we ever really fully tame that tiger? I am convinced that even the most enlightened Lama or great teacher will experience troubled thoughts from time to time, albeit briefly for them. It does take considerable effort to tame our mind, but that effort is rewarded with a more balanced and comfortable state of being. How we achieve this is a matter of personal choice. For many, this is the role religion and faith plays in their lives. I am not at all religious, and if pressed on it, I believe in a secular society that guarantees the fundamental right of the individual to believe in whatever God or gods they want, as long as it doesn't harm another sentient being. In truth, I cannot even say that I am a Dzogchenpa, and a worthy student of Tibet's oldest Buddhist tradition. I do use mantra, prayers, and meditation to still my thoughts, but I have adapted these to my own spiritual path, and that has been influenced by many teachings and traditions. I have had sacred visions and dreams and the occasional wondrous spiritual experience since my early childhood. But almost all of them were spontaneous occurrences and were not the result, to the best of my knowledge, of any practice or spiritual empowerment. They arose from natural mind and were projected into something like the reality of a mirror reflection. And then, just as suddenly as they appeared, they returned to their inherent nature of emptiness. I no longer look for any kind of meaning in such experiences. I rarely speak of them. Most people tend to think you're mad if you do. To me, I am just a creative being, seeking to somehow express the unknowable, while all around me, many of my fellow human beings are wholly fixated, like cyber zombies, to the screens of their chosen smart appliance and spend most of their waking hours interfacing with a virtual world. This makes me more confident of my own sanity and less in theirs.